Hey, welcome to the Peanut Gallery podcast.
What episode is this, Albert?
It is episode 1. We are pumped. We are finally launching. We've talked about this for a couple of years. So we are finally launching. Very excited about that. So I wanted with my first podcast, my very first podcast, I wanted to have it with one of my favorite people in the world, and that is my wife. And I think a big part of that why I want you on here. And make no mistake, she did not want to be on here. This is not something that this cost me. This is like Happy Valentine's Day. You're stuck recording with me. But anyways, one of the things that we have really found in our life, I have at least, is so much of what I've been able to accomplish. There's been so much that she's played in the background. And those of you guys who are married and have a loving spouse, you guys understand what I'm saying. She has done a great job in turning me into the man I was. She did some missionary dating. I think, what was the question the Peanut Gallery had for her?
Why did you choose to marry, of all people, okay, why did you choose to marry Mr. Bean?
I plead the fifth.
Yeah, the fifth it is. So we don't know why she chose me, but we are very, very, very grateful for that. And so we wanted to start with this podcast because really what I wanted with this podcast, we're not looking to try to be the next trendsetter, what we wanted was really share our story. We wanted something that, for me, even personally, I wanted something that I would leave a legacy for my kids when they look, well, how did dad make decisions in this? What did their marriage look like? Something that we can have real conversations on, that when they're going through this stuff, they can look to this and go, hey, that's pretty cool being able to listen to mom and dad in the way they made it work. So very excited about that. I'm really glad you guys are joining us. So why don't we start a little bit? We've had a long track record. We've known each other for a while. There's evidence of us being in love as young as kindergarten, if I remember correctly. I was the only one who felt that. That's cool. That's cool. No, there's a picture of us in kindergarten. We were holding hands. It's quite sweet.
That's cute.
Yeah, Josie was crying.
The photographer made me.
So you've been telling everyone this whole time, Albert, oh yeah, we fell in love in kindergarten. Meanwhile, the whole time, the photographer just has like some fuzzy peaches or something.
It was a setup.
Like, hey, Josie, hold hands with him and I'll give you some candy.
It may have been nobody else wanted to stand beside me, and Josie was the nicest one, but the way I remember it.
I was the tallest.
You were the tallest. What happened? What happened there? So our families knew each other quite well. So that's been my sister was best friends with your sister, both my older and younger. And so there was a part of it where you also had no choice. You kept showing up at my house.
You kept hiding behind the bed.
Yeah, that's a true story, actually. I was actually quite afraid of her. Not much has changed. Okay, so let's talk about our story a little bit. How this all turned out, because I think we have a very interesting story. I find my story very interesting. So we started dating in at the end of grade 8.
10.
No, it's grade 8. That was a short one. Short one. We dated for a couple of weeks, and then I got a Dear John letter. Well, it was Dear Albert.
Yeah. I had better things to focus on.
So those were rough years for me as I chased the girl of my dreams from kindergarten through grade 8, and then we finally started dating. And then we broke up, and then we dated. And then there's a bit of a fight for what happened next, because the way I remember it, and apparently I think a theme of this entire podcast is going to be the way Albert remembers it was wrong. The way I remember it, so we started dating a second time again, and then I broke up with you. But you feel like you broke up with me.
Albert caught wind of a rumor that I was about to break up with him, so he quickly called me to make it look like he was doing the breaking up. And then I was like, good, I was going to break up with you anyway.
Were you actually?
Yes.
Why?
I don't need a boy in high school.
It's triggering me all over the place. Okay, so then we broke up again, and then we started dating again a couple of months later, and ever since then we've been together. So that was really good. And so when people, and my kids have used this against me already. They say, well, you guys started in grade 8 and it turned out great for you. High school was an emotional wreck. I had a bunch of ex-girlfriends. They were just all Josie. So, but it's such an interesting thing. Now I have kids who, I have one who's out of high school, one who's in the middle of it, and then a couple who are about to enter into it. But dating at that age is so fascinating now as an adult looking down. Like, what is it about that you're trying to accomplish dating in grade 8? You can't drive anywhere. You can't do anything. But I tell you, I had a moment like if they made a movie about our lives when we were singing there in choir. Good night. It was like one of those, I've seen this in some of the movies. There's that one girl in choir and like the little halo and it's the wind was blowing through her hair. There wasn't even wind. It was beautiful. So anyways, that's how it all started. For me, at least, that I asked you this question before, and I don't know if we'll get an answer out of you if you've come up with one or not. But we dated for quite a while. And then after college or after high school, we both decided to spend a year at Bible college. A lot of people feel like I went because of you. But it was Jesus. Mm-hmm. It was Jesus that I was following. They're both J words, Jesus and Josie. So Bible college, if you guys know the reputation of Bible college is bridal college.
Ring by spring.
Ring by spring, yes. I've never even heard that. Okay, that's good. So ring by spring. And so what happened to a lot of our friends even was they'd go out there and they'd decide who they were dating in high school was no longer who they wanted to be with. And they found somebody else. And so there was a little part where it was a kind of like we're a trial throughout the whole year. I was waiting for Josie to be like, I found somebody better. And so I'd kind of set myself up for that, and we graduated, and we were still together. And so for me, at least, that was literally at the end of that year where I was kind of like, no, this is the one. Because before that in high school and stuff, I think there was jealousy. Well, I did not think. There was. I struggled with jealousy. Josie would talk to like my brother, and I'm like, oh man, she's gonna leave me for Pete. He's so much cooler than me. Right, so I struggled with that, and I think a lot of guys do, and girls. But after going through Bible college together and kind of going, no, this is who I want to spend my life with. Like I'm pretty set on this, and that kind of led into the rest of our chaotic story. But do you have kind of anything like that where you were kind of?
No, I knew all along who I was gonna marry. I thought I made that clear. I don't know what his problem was that he didn't understand that. Apparently my communication wasn't the best, but...
Okay, so communication is not our strength. Josie feels like it's my listening. Just gonna affirm that, yes, I agree with that. All right, so you felt the entire time that kind of like this is who you wanted to marry. And so even though you were dumping me, it wasn't for another guy, it was just for
later.
For later. I'll save you for later.
I just didn't want it at the time. Right. Mm-hmm.
It was hard, Trevor. I know you're laughing, but it hurt my heart.
I'm sure it did.
Good night. Okay. All right. So those are the dating years. We came back here, and then you wanted to go get your higher education. So you bailed off to Hamilton. So what'd you do with your education? Tell us a little bit about how smart you are.
I went to Redeemer University to get my teacher's education, my Bachelor of Education.
Right.
That's what I went for.
What'd you major in?
English and social studies.
Right. So for any of you guys who are married to an English major's wife, you understand. What's that thing you hate so much? When I seen stuff?
Yep. Or when you say that is Josie and I's favorite. It's not Josie and I's. Sorry.
Tell us the rule, Josie. Tell us. Let it out. Let it all vent. I hear about this all the time.
No, we won't go there.
Okay. All right. So you went off to university. I went off to pursue my dreams of becoming a police officer. So I went to Westervelt College and pursued policing, which...
That college no longer exists, by the way.
Neither does my career. So both kind of went. So, but that was, and the reason I bring this up is because this is where I feel like marriage gets really interesting, because who you thought you were going to marry and who I thought I was going to marry have definitely not turned out to be who we thought they were. So you were going to marry a police officer,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going to be a stud riding in. You didn't expect that? That's the way I visualized it, okay, because I was going to be on SWAT. But anyways, whatever. So I was going to be a police officer. You were going to be a teacher, and a lot of the rest, if you know my personality, I hadn't really thought through kids or any of that kind of stuff, because that's just not how far ahead I think. So when we got married, why did you say yes? Trevor asked before. I sang to her. It was wonderful.
Married him for his money.
Married him for his money. Yep, married me for my money. I was working at Format through Express at the time, and we were moving to Hamilton, and I had no job lined up yet.
Living off of OSAP.
Living off of OSAP. Those were good times. It was crazy. Now when I think about it, if my kids do this, I'm going to be so stressed. But we just loved being together. I mean, at that point, most of our life had already been together. Most of the memories were created together, and so it was really, really neat. And I think, so moving into Hamilton, in our story, this is actually, looking back, it wasn't something we did intentional. But I think for us, that was one of the best things for our marriage. And I think has kind of carried through into the last couple of years because we were far enough away from home that we really had to build our own identity. And around here, we had all of our friends. We're a lot of the same circles. All of our families were here. So every weekend was busy, everything. And so now all of a sudden we're in Hamilton. And we're in a sketchy part of Hamilton too. That was kind of fun. we the first year we lived in right by Hess Village there. And very, when you hear about any stabbing or anything in Hamilton, we're like, I know where that is. That's right where we used to live. But it created a really uniqueness to us. And I think one of the things that I've seen in a lot of others that get married and other people, I mean, you don't always have the luxury of moving away. But we certainly felt like the ability to move away and form our own identity. Josie wasn't constantly with friends. Josie wasn't always going out. I wasn't always doing that. We were stuck together. And so when you're going grocery shopping, we went together. When we do anything, we went together. And really felt like that was something that now looking back wasn't intentional, but has really, really formed a foundation for the way we see it. What are some of the other things we did right? I want to talk about that a little bit because a lot of the conversation about marriage is all the things we do wrong. And we can get to that. There's some things that we definitely suck at. That's pretty long. I guess that would be its own episode. Why Albert sucks. But what are some of the things? So I created a bit of a list, and you can jump in kind of where you want. But some of the things we did right. And I think one of the first ones was our desire to travel. What do you think?
Yeah. Explored a lot of places. Went a lot of places. Random weekend trips.
Where do y'all go?
Oh dear.
What's the craziest trip that you went on with Mr. Bean over here?
Stop referring to me as Mr. Bean.
The craziest. New York City.
Yeah,
Very unplanned.
Do you remember? Okay, so we went to New York City. So this moment, I think, epitomizes our entire existence. So I think that's the right word. Was that the right word? Epitomizes? It seems much bigger than...
I don't think that's...
Am I making it up? Okay. Whatever. So we're going to New York, and I don't know if you guys remember this time. Trevor, you probably wouldn't, but we actually didn't all have data on our cell phones. It was crazy times. Crazy times. So we were driving to New York. We've never been before. And speaking of that, our honeymoon was the same thing. We just drove. And I had booked some... Man, I sucked. How did you ever pull through on that? We'll go to New York, and then we'll come back to our honeymoon, because I would argue our honeymoon was probably the most ridiculous thing we ever did. But anyway, so New York, we had booked a Holiday Inn. And then, I don't remember, why did we decide to change? We decided to change NOA hotels on the way.
Because we realized it was far away from the city.
Oh, yes. Yes, so we had booked one at home, and so now we were trying to find one a little closer. So Josie called in while we were driving, and she booked one. And so as we're getting, it was in New Jersey, so it was right close to Manhattan there. So as we were driving closer, this literally the conversation is, this area is so stinking sketchy, guaranteed, all of a sudden in the middle of here is going to be our hotel. And sure enough, we're driving, sketch, hotel. We're like, are you kidding me? And then you were mad at me that night. You want to talk to me, talk to the world about that? Do you remember why you were so mad?
I think I was mad. I was disappointed and bored.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
You were watching CNN all evening. I hate CNN.
Okay, but why
Not
was
CNN.
I Fox? I don't
Fox.
know. We didn't know left and right back then. We had no idea all that dialogue. But anyways,
Some news channel.
the
and
world was going to war.
Mhm.
I think the U.S. had just gone into Iraq or something. There was some war going on, and I was fascinated. And
I
Josie,
couldn't care less.
I apparently wasn't reading signals at that time as well. So I didn't know how angering I was, but I was just, I was just very happy we didn't die that night because I kept waiting for somebody to break into our hotel. It was so sketchy. So sketchy. But then New York was pretty cool. That was pretty amazing. We were there before they rebuilt the towers and stuff, and so seeing some of that, absolutely breathtaking. I think my highlight for that whole trip, though, was seeing Times Square and eating in that Olive Garden because we had seen it in the movies, right? You had seen all this stuff. And then just to be standing there was super cool.
And buying a pretzel off the
Yes.
street vendors.
Yes, buying a pretzel was good.
Cool.
But yeah, it was a lot of those kind of trips. I think one of my other favorite ones, we'll get to our honeymoon here in a bit, but my other favorite one, we went to Chicago. Again, fairly unplanned, but thanks to you working for the government at the time, remember we got a discounted rate with Ernie and Lanita, and we we went and we stayed at a golf resort. Oh, buddy, it was a Hilton golf resort. And so Ernie and I went and played at 18 holes, and they had, this was mind-blowing at the time. A lot of these stories now, when you think about it, people are like, so what's so good about that? But anyways, it was one of those courses that you'd see on like the movies or like the video games you play. It's like massive houses all around, like just beautiful. The golf carts had GPS in it. and it was, so we were playing and we got put it together with two older guys because we couldn't just go in a group of two because they were too busy. And these poor guys, like I sucked. It was so bad. They'd be like one shot and they're like 70 at least. One shot, beautiful straight. And then there's me, topped it, sliced it. Oh, man. So anyways.
I remember discovering Hobby Lobby while you were there. I'd never discovered Hobby Lobby.
Wow. That was an expensive golf game.
That was.
Oh, snaps. So that was good times. That was one of my favorite trips, too. The other thing that we did, so our honeymoon. Back then, and maybe everybody else was flying already, but it had never dawned on me to book a flight because I'd never flown anywhere. To this point, I'd never been on a plane. I'd never been to a beach somewhere other than Port Stanley, Burwell, and Bruce. And so we wanted to go out. That's west. Which east? East. We want to go out east.
Yeah.
West?
East.
East. Wherever Prince Edward Island is.
That's east.
We went to Prince Edward Island. And so we started driving, and I hadn't calculated it very well. But we stopped in Quebec City. So that was beautiful. Was it in Quebec City or Montreal that we got our heads torn off? Do you remember? We were leaving the hotel, and then some guy chased us and was screaming at us in French. I don't know what's happening. So apparently we hadn't paid our bill.
No, we had. He thought we hadn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was, but anyways, so that was our honeymoon. We was very unplanned. We ended up coming across a few accidents. We ended up showing up really late.
Didn't have a cell phone.
Did not have a cell phone. No. Definitely different times. But anyways, a lot of those forged a very strong friendship. We did the Thousand Islands. We did a trip to Cleveland to see Michael W. Smith because that was one of your favorite artists, right? You can tell Josie's a rock star that way. Michael W. Smith.
And his full symphony.
Full symphony.
It was a Christmas one.
Oh, it was beautiful. Mm-hmm. I nailed that year. But we did a lot of those things. And as we've gotten older, then now we've done Vegas and LA and Belize and a bunch of those kind of places. But one of the things that I feel, at least, is a lot of younger couples, and Trevor, I'll say this to you guys, you guys get married, take smaller trips that you can afford. When you see all these guys and they go, and I know there's something about going to a beach and relaxing. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy it sort of as well. I get pretty bored pretty quick. But go see, like, the Canada and the US have so much beauty in them. You go up north, the amount of cabins and resorts you can go to. You go east, west. This country is beautiful. But everybody's so quick to jump on a plane, just go to a beach. And I think there's a lot of really cool experiences.
The borders are closed now, so Canada's cool.
Well, you think about, I still haven't been to Banff, some of those
Same.
places.
Yeah.
So definitely hoping that that's somewhere our marriage takes us. Maybe you can give that to me for Valentine's
I have
Day.
been to Banff, by the way. Without you. During Bible college.
I know, with another boy.
Was it Pete?
Hey!
Was it Pete that you went with?
No, but you know what she did on that trip? So on that trip, my brother was getting married then at the end of Bible college that first year. And so she wasn't going to be there. And she actually flew in and surprised me on my brother's wedding.
I did.
It was a very touching moment.
It was a lot of planning to get a flight from Calgary.
Yeah, and you were scared to be flying by yourself like that.
Very scared.
That was not very good. So you did a lot for me. You loved me a lot. You're a good person. Yeah, a lot of people who know that you're with me think that you must be a really good person. Okay, so what else are we going to talk about? Let's talk about the last couple of years. Because I think this is where we've gotten into some of the more difficult times. And I think that, so it'd be nice to just say that it's been perfect, smooth sailing. But there have been challenges. And I think during that, I think there's some lessons that we've probably learned and gotten better through. And Josie's looking at me going, where are we going with this, Lowen? I don't see this on my paper. But one of the things that we've discovered is that we actually suck at fighting. And so we never really fought. Even when we were dating in the first 10 years of marriage, I bet we fought once, twice. And I think some of that was personality, but some of that was also some of the really good habits that we put in place. We made a very strong effort in the early years to never allow ourselves to get bitter at each other. And some of that we both kind of have. Like we get over stuff pretty quick. And so some of those were good habits, but I think over the last couple of years, the weight of the busyness of life, I think, has made it much more challenging. And it's interesting. So as a pastor, when I'm counseling people, then there's different stages where people end up divorced. And the one that we were kind of in the middle of is a big one. Right around the 10-year mark, the 15-year mark was another one. But 3 and 7 were the ones that never really affected us. Like, we never really had an end to a honeymoon phase, I don't think. Like, it wasn't... Maybe that's some of our personality, that we're just kind of steady. We don't really have huge highs and huge lows. But then now in the place where we both have full-time jobs, we had a couple of years where the kids didn't sleep, and we're very stressed about some of that. So you're not sleeping. You're operating on... would you say 15% brain capacity after 3 weeks of not sleeping with Colby? Like, it was so hard. What would you say, kind of looking back now, because we're in a good place now. I think we're in a fairly great place, actually. What would you say, looking back, to other couples maybe who are going through that, you kind of go, these are maybe one or two of the things that we held on to that helped us get through it? You're mad at me. Okay, well,
No clue.
I'll pray.
Yes, pray.
Okay, so let's go. Sorry, I'm throwing you off here. I did not prepare for this question, but I think it's a good question. So we have family around us, and I think that's been one of the biggest things.
Right.
But it hasn't always been easy. I think being intentional about pouring into those relationships with both our parents and in-laws has been really good.
I have nothing to add.
Yes, you do. Okay. The other thing. Okay, so in the last couple of years, we've talked about learning to fight better. I think that's been one of the things that, I guess maybe that's a me thing. You're looking at me like that's not something you struggle with.
Yes. I'm trying desperately to think of something.
Okay, so the way we
don't
fight,
know.
I would say the way we fight is very different.
Yes.
So I'm very quick to just say, let's forget about it.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about it. I want to move on. But then if I ever get to a place where I get very mad, it's very hard for me to snap out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You, on the other hand, I feel like just want to go for a walk and go away and then come back and just move on.
Right.
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 But you're also okay just going to bed mad and then being like, it'll be fine in the morning. And I'm like, how in the world can you even go to bed? Like,
Yeah.
who's going to sleep?
Well, and it's not that I don't want to stay up and fight. I just get really tired. So I just like, we need to have a little nap here and settle this. No, but I think that's been part of the challenge. And even as a church, when we were learning how to deal with conflict, understanding that the other person fights different helps. So when Josie does do what she does when she gets mad, I'm not mad at her for the way she responds, because that's sometimes what we do. So now I'm mad at her, but now I'm also mad for the way she responds, but that's just the way you're wired to respond. And so I think when we could kind of understand that a little bit better and give each other grace that way, I think that made a big difference. And the other thing, and we are quickly running out of time here, the other thing that I think is something we actually heard when we were in Guadalajara with Dallas and Tara. It was something Tara said that I'm sure I'd heard before, but I'd never thought about before. And she said, try to believe the best about the situation. And so when Josie does something that I feel like, how could you do this? You're hurting me. Don't get lost in the negative, the assumptions, but try to assume the best. Assume that if Josie did something or your spouse did something, that it's not always worst case scenario. And I think that has been something that's really helped me out, at least, is trying to keep that positive. Okay, so if Josie's really mad or Josie's whatever's ticking me off that day, not getting lost, because our brains can go to very dark places very, very quickly. And I found that to be one of the best pieces of advice that I had been given. Try to keep believing the best. We got about 2 minutes left. Anything you want to add? You'd like to say to our boys and daughter as they're thinking about marriage? Oh, jeepers. Yeah, be careful who you marry.
Sometimes you just need to have a nap or eat some food.
Yeah.
And then your problems go away.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. One of the things that we have talked about, and we'll talk about in some of the other podcasts, is that self-care piece. And when you're not taking care of your own needs, now you're losing it because your wife's making you mad. Sometimes it literally is. And I think sometimes when we're fighting, the best thing we can do is, so everybody's different, but for us, it's going for a drive to Starbucks.
Yeah.
Going to grab some food. And it doesn't make the problem go away, but often our problems when we actually later on try to be like, why are we fighting? I don't really know. One thing led to this, and then led to this, and led to this, but at the core of it really wasn't that big of a deal. So I think, anyways, what we wanted to say, or what I wanted to say through this at least, was how much I appreciated you and how much marriage has meant to me, and how much, when I look at who I've been able to become, so much of that has been because you've been by my side. And I love you for that and really appreciate that. There's often so much negative about marriage that's said, but there is so much positive, and we are 15 years in plus 8 years dating, 16 years in plus 8 years dating. So we're 24 years. I'm 37, so most of my life has been with you, and it is awesome. So with that, I'm hoping we can encourage you guys, if you guys are watching, try to see the best in each other. Try to laugh as much as you can. Take time together, especially when you have kids. Don't overdo it. Take your kids with. Don't get me wrong. Don't be like, I'm leaving every weekend because I need my marriage. But find time to build into that, pour into that relationship, because what your kids are going to love is watching mom and dad having a good time together. And so if that's possible, and I know it's not always possible in every marriage, but if it's possible, pursue that, see the best in each other, forgive constantly. And we're out of time. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for doing it. Loved it. Appreciate having you on. Looking forward to the next time, next conversation. Have yourselves a great day.